All right, then let's go, I guess.
All right, let's do it. So,
Strategy, the magnificent Californian.
and my favorite Englishman, James. Dude, okay, so it's like 1 a.m. for you, right? And you just woke up.
Yeah, yeah.
What's it like? Because my sleep schedule is totally screwed up and I feel tired all the time. So how do you not feel tired all the time?
Um, I think it definitely like takes its toll over time. The longer you
Mm.
keep doing this, and having like a really messed up sleep schedule. Um, to a certain extent, it's nice because it's getting really hot here. So I basically get to work during like the coolest part of the day.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's really helpful. But you're right, it is really messed up. I'm like drinking coffee at 1 a.m.
Oh my God, dude. The part that confuses me the most is like, I know this sounds stupid, but how do you know when to go to sleep?
That's a good point, actually. Like, it's just been gradually getting later and later by like 1 hour. One thing that's really
I
weird
see.
is that like when I used to get up at like 5 and go to bed at 10, like really good sleep schedule, like you sort of have anchors for where you know, like if I've done a certain amount of work by 12 p.m., then I can feel really good about myself, if you know what I
Right.
mean. If I've been really
Yeah,
productive by
yeah,
12 p.m. But
yeah.
since I've been getting up at 1 a.m., then going to bed at like 4 p.m. the next day, it's like you have no idea because I've not spent enough time to really know which times are like, if I've done enough work
Oh
by
man.
this sort of time, then I should feel good, or if I should feel bad. I just have no idea what I should feel at any time.
I never even considered that, but
Yeah,
you're right. There are like a lot of points in the day that are parts of your routine, and if you totally shift your schedule, you have to find a new routine, especially if like certain things you do rely on the day. Like, do you go running in the middle of the night?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like, um, typically I try and do what like was says. Like, um, obviously what he says applies to someone with like biphasic sleep or whatever, which I
Yeah,
definitely
like a
don't have. Like I don't usually take a nap in the middle of the day,
mm.
but usually I do try and go running like 6 to 8 hours after waking up. Apparently that's when you start to decline in like your mental acuity, you know.
Yeah,
So
that's when you're supposed to take the nap. So you're just replacing the nap with the run.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like if you can't do anything like mentally straining, then you might as well do something physically, you know, intense instead, I guess.
Yeah, that's the most disappointing part to me. I'm always sad about how much cognitive effort can be used up every single day. I always wish it was more, but everybody always says it's like 4 to 6 hours of maximum output, and then anything else is like subpar.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know. It's surprising how little time you have to dedicate to creative stuff, especially like at your absolute max. You have like you said, like 4 to 6 hours of like really high intensity cognitive power, and then it just slowly goes down throughout the day. And then like if you have like other responsibilities and stuff, you're just so pushed for time. It's nuts.
Yeah, it completely sucks, dude. Because think about it. If you want to read, like let's say incremental reading can be really high effort. It can take a lot of cognitive power to do that well. Or like, I guess items are less cognitively taxing. But if you want to do that and code or work on
Mm.
some creative project, where is the gas in the tank to do both of those activities? Or do you just have to choose this one's more important to me, you know?
I don't know. I do feel that like doing like interleaving multiple things, like switching every like 20 minutes or whatever, or like
Mm.
setting when you do your reps, if you like set it to like I think I think was says like the best um cue to have is like 4 items for every one topic or something.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that helps you work for longer. I don't know why. Do you feel like you can work for longer doing something like IR than you could doing like some equivalent, just like reading?
Yeah, I think so because with IR you don't really get bored. I think it's because you're constantly seeing something new.
Mm.
You know what I mean? If you get tired or bored, you just get a new input. Whereas with traditional reading, like if you're reading a book, the book is always about the same thing. I mean, pretty much. It's not like you're suddenly gonna turn the page and there's a new topic on it. I
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
you
yeah.
can discuss stuff within the book, but in IR you can be reading about one subject 1 second and then you push next rep and it's something totally different. So to me that can be energizing and it can uh, make it so I can go for longer. But what happens to me sometimes is that I'll hit a topic that's really complex and that I don't understand. And all of a sudden, it's like my energy levels are declining just from that one topic.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? It's like in coding when you hit a bug.
Mm. No, it is really interesting how there is like a physical effect of reading something you like don't understand or that isn't interesting to you. It is like it's like a really um, fast physical effect. Like your eyes like immediately begin to sort of like close up. You start feeling tired. You start feeling
Yeah,
exhausted.
yeah,
I know.
exactly. I have that exact same experience.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Also,
Do you have
like,
that with? Yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say IR and like how interesting it is and interleaving different topics and stuff was the inspiration behind like our sort of programming thing when we were trying to
Yeah.
switch between lots of little different projects, but we found it much harder, right?
Yeah, yeah, I certainly found it very hard. I can only do it on occasion. The days, I can say this, when the days that I've done it well, I've thought, okay, that was great. I got a lot done on a lot of projects, and I never got bored or tired because it was always something new.
Mm.
But it's really hard to do consistently. It's like it requires something extra, some initial energy to get going, or I don't know. What was your experience?
Yeah, I'm the same way. When it went well, it went really well, and I felt like I got a lot done. Um, I didn't think I didn't capture any data about it. I should have recorded what I did, but yeah, my experience was that when I was making like consistent progress on each small project, and there were no bugs, then I felt great. I felt like I was um, just constantly like pumping out new features and stuff, fixing bugs, whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I don't know. It's definitely something I want to try in the future. I feel like this interleaving different topics is so powerful because you can concentrate for way longer. Um, yeah, but there
Yeah,
is
you can
something about.
concentrate for. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. We've discussed this before. Like, there's something about programming that when you run into an issue, you just can't pull your attention away.
Yeah, and not only that, but it all of a sudden makes you extremely fatigued.
Mm,
At least for me. Like if I run into a bug and I have to work on it for 2 hours, by the end of that 2 hours, I finally solved it, but I don't have the energy to work on something else.
yeah, yeah. I'm the same way.
But the thing with IR, the equivalent to me would be if you run into a topic where you don't understand something, which is kind of like what a bug is. Something is going on that you don't have a full grasp of. That's why it's a bug. And so, but in IR, when you run into a topic you don't understand, the procedure is simple. All you do is you postpone it and you can import supplementary material if you want, or just assume that something else is already in your queue that will help you understand it in the interim or whatever it is. And then when you come back to it, you'll understand it. The procedure is known. Whereas when I run into a bug, it's like, okay, well, if I don't fix the bug, it's not going to fix itself. What's going to happen? Yeah, I don't know. It's just a different thing. I feel like if I could integrate the same philosophy into my coding, I could get way more done and not feel so fatigued.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. Oh,
But
on
part
the
of doing that is that you have to have a lot of tasks like as a backlog. So if,
oh
if
yeah,
you
yeah,
get stuck on one, you can move to the other.
yeah. Do you do that? Do you split your work up into like different tasks, into like really small tasks for your coding?
When things are going well for me, I generally have things split up, but it's not like super discrete tasks. It's just like I have to do that and I have to do that, but it's not like broken up into sections. What do
Mm.
you do? How do you manage that?
Um, there's like no management at the moment. It's just total chaos. Yeah, I did have this dream of like integrating uh, the GitHub like projects. You can have like projects like this. I think they call it like a Kanban board or something
Oh,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
like ZenHub,
Yeah.
but it's like integrated into GitHub. And I figured like, what if you could integrate that with SuperMemo tasks? So they were like linked in some way, so you could have like prioritized tasks in SM, and they all represent some task on your GitHub. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll
I mean,
probably.
the interesting part of that to me is I've always thought, what if you had all of your tasks in a spaced repetition system so that you reviewed your tasks like items, and
Mm,
if you just decided, oh, I don't want to do that one today, you just hit next and it comes back later. Whereas traditionally, like, things don't work that way. So you end up getting less done than you could because you're not scanning the environment, like even the
mm.
digital environment, for things that you'd be willing to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you sort of you forget about things like ideas that you had that you wanted to elaborate more on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like Andy Matuszak's vision, sort of having these like creative prompts. I yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
I
it's an
mean,
interesting idea. I
I
think it's
don't
worth
know how to
trying out.
best implement it because it's like a really weird, it's a weird thing to do. And some stuff has to be done, like depending on your life circumstances, some stuff has to be done by a certain time or whatever. But theoretically, if you had no hard deadlines and you just had a huge list of tasks and you reviewed those in a spaced manner, right? And you just said next if you don't want to do it, and if you did, you just did it, right? Or made some progress, you did something on it.
Mm.
It feels like you could fill your entire day up with productivity without being fatigued, in the same way that you could fill your entire day up with incremental reading and not be fatigued.
That would be wonderful.
I mean, do you think that's a doable thing?
um, yeah, I guess. I I didn't really see any reason why it shouldn't be, but maybe it would work better in different fields, like in coding, lots of tasks they have like interdependencies, so you have to do something before you do something else.
Right,
Um,
right, exactly.
but maybe like for writing, like for incremental writing, like you could have you want to write a paragraph on some concept. Um, I guess maybe those sort of things they don't really have crazy interdependencies like coding tasks do. So maybe you could um, I don't know. It would be easier to add tasks that don't interfere with each other, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. And another part of it too, I think, is just the friction of getting started. Like with a coding project, the friction of getting started is way higher than with reading or writing. Like if you want to elaborate on some topic in SuperMemo, you just see it and you start writing right there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a task for programming and you see it, then you have to open up your text editor and you have to sort of get yourself in the mind space of, oh, what was the last thing I worked on? And, you know, open the right files and maybe create some new files that you're going to need or whatever it is. There's so much friction to getting started that I feel like that's a barrier also.
Mm. Yeah. How's your incremental writing been going?
Oh yeah, it's a really weird thing. I've tried to replicate this sort of Zettelkasten note-taking thing within SuperMemo. At first, I was doing it all in one collection. So I had my incremental reading and my incremental writing all in one collection,
Mm-hmm.
but it was separated by like concepts. So I had like a notes concept or whatever. But that was really annoying to me because as I was incrementally reading, sometimes the notes would come up and it was like a different mode that I had to be in to write or to read.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't really making good progress on the writing because when I was in the reading mode, I just wasn't in the mood for writing. So I separated them out recently into their own collection. And that's why I asked you if I could open up two instances
Oh yeah.
of Super Memo because I want to have the notes collection open and the incremental reading collection open. And often what I've been doing is I'll read a topic in the incremental reading and then take notes on it in the incremental writing. And they're like conceptual higher level notes. almost never about the particulars of the thing. If it's some fact, I just make an item about that within the incremental reading collection.
Damn, that sounds really cool. I don't think
Do you
I've
do any
ever.
writing, or do you just do? Because I know you like write questions for yourself as you're incrementally reading, but do you do writing beyond that?
Uh, no, like, I mean, I created that blog. There's like, there's the infrastructure is created. I just need to actually
Yeah.
get down to writing something.
Oh man, writing is so tough, especially for a blog. That's why I wrote that stupid post, because that post was so lightweight
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
just addressed something that I kept seeing people make this mistake of thinking that the number of words in the answer field of an item somehow correlates to whether or not it's the minimum information principle. And I
Mm,
guess at the extreme ends it does. If you have 1,000 words in the answer, you're never going to remember that. But if you have a solid conceptual understanding, a string of words can represent a single concept, which is what the minimum information principle is about. So I just thought I can write this stupid little snarky blog post, and then I have something up, and I thought maybe this is the equivalent of pushing the snowball down the hill, and this will get me going. But so far, it's not happened, and I have not written any other blog posts.
No, I think it's
Um,
good. I think that's the right approach. Like, your first post doesn't need to be like this 40 chapter epic. You know,
yeah,
you just
yeah.
need to get something out there.
Well, you should do that. You should write a blog post.
No, I totally agree. I have ideas for blog posts I was going to write. I think I prefer video as like a medium for
Mm.
communicating certain things. Like, I was going to write about, I don't know, sort of why I made some of the plugins I made, and like how I envision them being used. And I thought like a video would be better for that.
Yeah, video is definitely better for a lot of things. Did you have like some specific ideas for videos that you wanted to make?
Yeah, I was gonna do leeches, like leech handling, because I had a bunch of ideas for interesting ways to like handle them. And plus, my collection has so many. I think I've still got like 200 outstanding leeches that I need to
Oh,
fix.
wow.
Yeah, so it's a lot.
So
Um,
what were some of the ideas you had? Unless you want to save them for your video.
um, sure, why not? You know, like I think one of the most interesting ones was this. I think I posted it to the SMA dev chat the other day. Like, basically, you can turn on this mode, and then whenever you visit an item, it will search a database of Anki cards for cards that have similar content to the item you're currently on in SuperMemo. Then you can
I
like hit a
saw that,
button.
dude. I was blown away by that idea.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was really interesting because you can just really quickly add like redundant cards, even though like I found it was quite useful, but you have to filter the Anki cards so much because so many of them are just garbage. It is
Yeah,
bad.
yeah,
It
I
is
can
bad.
imagine.
Like even amongst like the top decks, there are really good ones. Like I think it's Brian Spearing. I hope I'm saying his name right, but whatever. Um, he had some good decks, but he was probably the only one out of the computer science ones that were actually like reasonable. So I don't know. I just had to
Yeah, I
add
think
like
the
a
medical
filter on them.
school people have a lot of good decks, but I
Sorry?
don't know if I think the medical school people have a lot of good decks, but I don't know if you study
Um,
medicine or anything.
no, I don't really study that stuff, but I have looked at those decks. I would say that the ones I looked at least were definitely like quantity over quality. um, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, speaking of leeches and redundancy, I think that's a good way to handle it. Like, I always recommend redundant items, but it always makes me think. Like, I used to think of remembering something as sort of a binary situation. I remembered that or I didn't, right? But now I think you only remember things in certain contexts. Like, what does it mean to remember something? Like, I know that sounds like a stupid thing to say,
Mm,
but anybody who's used SRS for sufficient time will know that it's possible to correctly answer an item and then not correctly answer when that situation comes up in real life if it doesn't match the context or the phrasing that's on your item, right? So what
Mm.
does that mean? Like, what is the situation there? Is what's happening is that you're storing some fact and then you're creating a link between some question and that fact, and then you can just create many links between that fact and a bunch of questions, and that's the utility of redundancy. Like, I think of remembering things now as only I remember that in this context instead of just a general I remember that.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Like, I suppose in a sense, like, your performance in maybe your performance in a SM collection, like what you remember and what you don't remember, might not reflect your performance in real life when you're given like real circumstances which relate to that information, because you might not be able to recall it in that circumstance. So I don't know, maybe the solution is just to ask yourself, what circumstances do I envision myself encountering this information in, and then try and um, ask the prompt in such a way that it like matches the real world uh, like situation.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good solution, although I don't think I've like perfected this or anything. I think another big piece of it is that people have a lot of items, especially closes, I think follow this pattern, where they answer it based on some sort of like visual cue of the structure of the sentence
Mm,
or something instead of the semantics. And I think that makes it less likely that you'll recall it in real life because
that's true. Yeah.
you're not actually remembering the meaning, you're just remembering like some structure of the sentence,
Yeah.
which is not that useful.
I wonder if like I wonder if those items that you just like recall based on some visual feature of the item, I wonder if those are still effective. I wonder if that like even though it doesn't seem like you're recalling it based on like the semantic relation, like the thing that you were like aiming to test, I wonder if just recognizing it based on the visual thing is if that provides any benefit at all, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what is your sense of that? Do you have items that you feel like you pattern match and they're still useful to you?
Um, I'm really not sure. Like, I definitely have items that are like that. Uh, I think it's just unavoidable. Like, you don't really. Um, I don't think you do it consciously. It just sort of happens that's like the path of least resistance for your memory, right? You just sort of
Yeah, yeah.
spontaneously yeah, it's totally unconscious, so you're not like deciding to do it. I wonder if it becomes easier, um, like over time, as like over time maybe it'll become easier as the intervals get longer. You'll forget like those visual features, and maybe
Oh,
also
yeah.
as your collection gets larger and larger, since there'll be so many more items, so many more
Right,
similar
right.
visual features, like you'll just end up forgetting those.
Yeah, it's because a lot of people think, oh, that's limited to closes. If you make a Q and A, you don't remember it based on the pattern. But I don't think that's
Mm.
true. And speaking of the collection size, if your collection is not that large, even Q&A items that are well formulated can be answered based on patterns because you don't have that many that have that kind of beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it seems like you sort of need a large number of items maybe to truly understand like what's going on. Like maybe.
I mean, that's just really unfortunate, though. It's like that's such a huge problem. It's hard to make items,
Yeah, yeah. I don't know.
but I don't know the solution of. I think part of the solution, and this is why formulation I think it's so important. Part of the solution is making items short, because
Mm.
then there's less visual cues
Yeah,
to attach to. You know what I mean?
that's a great point. Yeah, like so you minimize the number of possible like deviations from all your other items. So anything that could distinguish it from items based on like like how it looks just
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if the item is super short, there's simply less stuff that would point it out to you so you could match based on the structure of the sentence
Mm.
instead of the actual semantic, information.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of items are really hard to make short. And I don't know, I'm really interested in using items for things beyond simple memory. Like
Mm.
what one of the things I think about all the time is so much of life is about thinking about the right thing at the right time. And when you think about it, that's what items are meant to do, even just regular memory items. They're meant to make it so that you hopefully think of the right thing at the right time. If you need this information in problem solving, you think of it in that context at the right time. But there's also other things, like let's say that you're trying to work out and you're having trouble finding the motivation. Well, there must be some series of thoughts that could motivate you to work out. So it's about thinking about the right thing at the right time. And I wonder sort of more broadly about how spaced repetition can be of utility in those kinds of situations that are not purely about memory per se, although some of it might be,
Yeah.
but just about broadly adapting to life's challenges by thinking of the right thing at the right time.
That's really interesting. I think it's definitely like it's one of the most interesting parts of spaced repetition, like how it can be used to like generate ideas and like creative ideas, um, ideas that you need to have, like you said, at a certain point in time. I liked what you said about like habits, like you mentioned going to the gym or something. Like you want to encode certain behaviors by remembering
Yeah,
them with SRS prompts. Yeah, I think I've maybe there was a post about that on Less Wrong or something like that, with people doing that. Like I think it's called like instilling novel thought patterns or something like that.
and how are they doing it? Like, what kind of things would they do?
Um, I'm not sure actually. Um, I guess it was just some people would take situations like from their life where they'd made like a mistake or something like that, and they'd like create a card about how they would have acted differently. And I don't know how effective that is, but it it's a really interesting and like novel use of spaced repetition systems. Now I think it's worth like people exploring it. I'd love to see.
Yeah, I think that would be amazingly effective. I mean, don't
Yeah,
you? If you had a concrete situation where it's like, I did this and I should have done that, that seems really useful.
it also seems like it would be really easy to remember. Like it wouldn't be difficult at all since it's connected to some experience you had. It's already really vivid in your mind. So yeah, I
Yeah,
feel like you can
definitely. I
make a
mean,
lot of those items easily and like remember them.
but I just wonder, part of the thing I worry about is if you have an item like that, and you say, here's a mistake I made, here's what I should have done, and you're supposed to recall what you should have done.
Mm.
What if what if that's not what you should have done? What if you're wrong about that? And now you're encoding something deliberately, well, not deliberately, but accidentally wrong, and now you just walk around with that memory in your head thinking, "Oh, I should have done that instead," and it turns out it's not right.
That's a great point. I think it's like you can say the same of all of the information in like your collection, right? So if you should you be worried about learning information that's wrong and encoding it as an
Right.
item?
Yeah, what if you accidentally learn a bunch of wrong stuff? And now
Yeah.
those memories are super durable because the algorithm is so good and you've been diligently doing your reviews, except all of a sudden you've loaded your brain up with a bunch of junk.
Yeah, yeah. I think one thing that was said uh, in regards to this, which I thought was so interesting, was that the idea is that uh, let's say you have a bunch of wrong information encoded as items in your collection, and you encounter information that contradicts it in the future, and you make an item on that, then those two items, since they contain contradictory information, like like um, you'll
Oh,
fail
and they'll
both of them.
converge, the intervals will converge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The intervals converge until you see them on the same day. It'll
Right.
do it really slowly over time. So you sort of resolve these contradictions, like incrementally. I thought it was
Yeah,
so
that is a
interesting.
really interesting point. And it makes me think, how did people do it? Well, still, how do people who don't use SRS deal with lots of, like, if you're in a complex field, there's conflicting viewpoints that you have to hold.
Mm.
And so how are you managing that?
I don't know. Having used SRS for like I don't know how long I've used it now. Like I used Anki for 4 years, and now SM for like maybe 2 years now. I can't envision not using it now. There's just too much information. There's too much.
Yeah, and it makes me feel kind of like, am I an idiot? Because, like, I don't know how to learn stuff without using this. What are
Yeah,
you supposed to
yeah. Yeah.
do? Like, I forget everything.
Yeah, like I won't even pick up like a normal book anymore because I just know it's futile.
Yeah, exactly, dude. This exact thing happened to me. Last week. My internet, well, my whole power went off. I lost access to everything. My power went off in my house, so I couldn't do anything. And I just started reading books, because I have books, and
Mm.
and I just reading the books, and it was a great experience. I loved it, but I had this terrible feeling like, oh no, I'm not gonna remember anything. And it's true, you're not gonna remember anything. At least I'm not. And even if you take notes, me and Nace were talking about this. He coined this term. There's golden nuggets of knowledge, and
Uh-huh.
he coined this term copper nuggets of knowledge.
Ah,
And so
beautiful.
maybe if you read a book and you take notes afterwards, you'll remember the golden nuggets, and you'll put those in your notes, and you can incrementally read that. But you won't remember the copper nuggets. And then we started a discussion of like, what's worth remembering? Is it only the golden nuggets that are worth remembering, or should you remember the copper nuggets also?
The copper nuggets. I love that. I really do. Yeah,
But it's an interesting question.
yeah. I don't know. When you mean golden nuggets, can you expand on that? Like, what do you consider to be a golden nugget? Like, is it like
Like
insight?
something where you go, that's a really useful insight that like
Okay.
adjusts my thinking, or it could help me think about something a new way. It's just a really useful insight. Whereas a copper nugget might just be like, oh, that's interesting, but it doesn't really blow me away, or it's not hugely useful. But I don't know. Copper nuggets are interesting too. I can't imagine never learning anything that is not revolutionary.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know. I think it's actually really difficult to estimate the value. Like, let's say you have a nugget. It's actually really ambiguous whether this nugget is going to be a copper nugget or a golden nugget because you can't really
Right.
predict um, like how that information is going to be useful to you in the future. Like I don't know. It's similar to the way that information is really its usefulness is really subjective. So to a scientist, E equals mc squared might be like the best generalization, the best conceptual knowledge ever.
Right. Right.
But just to like your average guy, E equals mc squared is just trivia, is pure trivia, and has basically zero use to the average person. So, in a similar sense, you can look at something and say, I think this is a copper nugget. Maybe it's just the date of some event. That's sort of what I think
Right.
of when I think of a copper nugget, but that might actually, in the future, be really useful to you as sort of like an anchor point for, I don't know, some new technological revolution, like that date was the beginning of it, or something really important
Exactly
happened.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And that was, it's like, because you can't know in advance, this illusion where you go, oh, I'm going to capture the important stuff. Well, how do you know? You don't even know what's important.
Mm.
You cannot know. It's impossible. Like you say, a copper nugget can convert into a golden nugget. And I
Mm.
think the reverse can happen too.
Yeah,
Like in the example
exactly,
we're
yeah.
talking about changing your behaviors, you might think, oh, I found this golden nugget of a mistake I made and a solution. And then you discover the solution was wrong, and all of a sudden that golden nugget is a
It's
copper
fool's
nugget, or
gold.
maybe it's just useless altogether.
Yeah.
So it's like it's really tough, and the core of the point is reading or learning outside of the context of spaced repetition and incremental reading specifically. It feels so like a waste of time.
Mm. Okay,
But
so
there's joy. Like, what do you do? I was trying to figure out a solution to this. What do I do about the fact that I enjoy reading a paper book, but I have all this stress about, oh, I'm not going to remember any of this.
I don't know. Well, what sort of books do you read on paper? Is it the
Like, I was
same stuff?
reading, this is actually terrible. I was reading the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. And
Okay.
the reason I said it was terrible is because I had it on my desk 2 days ago, and I spilled an entire cup of coffee all over my desk. And it completely destroyed my copy of his autobiography. But that's the kind of stuff I read, like nonfiction texts, but just not on the computer.
Okay. And so would that be the same sort of stuff that you'd read in SM? Would you ever import that into SM?
Yeah, absolutely. It like I say, it changed because of my power situation. I just started reading paper books.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I suppose you have to sort of accept that if you read on paper, it's probably there's going to be stuff. Maybe there'll be stuff in there that you just lose out on because you're not saving it into SM. But you could do what the Rome research guy does. You could take pictures of the
Oh my
pages.
God. Oh my God. That is crazy. And whatever. I mean no disrespect to that guy. Maybe
No,
it's
same,
great
yeah.
for him. But for me that would be crazy slow. I feel like I would never get through any books. But and I guess the deeper question is, what is the point of learning if you don't remember it?
Yeah, yeah. Everything, all of our educational systems seem to be focused on acquisition, right? And I
Right.
think it's questionable that they even do a good job at that, but none of them focus on the retention part. So I feel like building knowledge is you need both. You need the acquisition and you need the retention over time. But we never focus on the retention. I don't remember. I can't recall even one episode where we were told like good techniques for retaining information over the long term that weren't just absurd like cramming or whatever. There was no focus on long term value at all.
Which is insane because think of it. Think of spending all that time on learning. And this happens even in universities. It's not
Oh
just
yeah.
like K through 12.
Uh huh.
And that's so crazy that people who are going to university to get a degree, to get a job in that field,
Mm.
they're forgetting so much information such that they have to cram before the final exams. And it's like, what is the point of all this learning if you're going to forget it all? Like, literally, what is the point?
Yeah, it's so depressing actually to think of like all that time, like a decade or more spent in school, and it's all just for nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't add up to anything. It's so terrible, dude.
Yeah, and
Oh,
it's not even that it's just really ineffective. It's that it's actually like actively harmful as well. Like,
yeah, if it's damaging your joy for learning, then
uh huh.
that's literally harming the rest of your life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the pleasure of learning article was the first one I ever read from Was, and I was like, oh my god.
Mm.
It can be like this. It doesn't have to be a painful grind. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting because to me, I don't know. I was never forced to learn anything. It's just good luck. But so I always thought that was like normal. You just learn things because you like it. And I'm not trying to be silly here.
Uh huh.
I'm not trying to be deliberately obtuse. I'm
Uh huh.
just saying genuinely I thought, that's what there was supposed to be joy in it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
had recognized that my friends who went to school, they didn't like it. But I just thought, oh, well, there's some subjects you like and some subjects you don't, and that's just the situation. But I don't know. To me, all of my learning, basically throughout my entire life, after the age of 10, I guess, has just been purely for enjoyment. And the other interesting thing about that pleasure of learning is that that's kind of a new idea to Woz. Maybe he had some hints of it, but it's
Okay.
like a few years old only, I think.
Oh, that would be really interesting to go back and look at the ideas of Waz's that were like that he had for a long time and that have just been more recent. I didn't think of that. But yeah,
Yeah,
what
and
you
it
said
makes me
about
wonder. Yeah, go
sorry.
ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say I'm so jealous of your upbringing. It sounds just totally the opposite of what I experienced. Really, yeah, it just sounds
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not like it turned me into some kind of super genius, but I do like learning, so I guess I got lucky there. That's a real gift for me. Like without learning, I don't know. It just seems like there would be no meaning to life. Like imagine if you could never learn anything again,
yeah.
and that would just be so terrible, dude. But
No
most
more golden
people,
nuggets.
yeah, most people, it seems to me, they get out of school and then that's it. Okay, I'm done. I'm done educating myself.
Mm,
That's crazy to me.
yeah, it's insane.
And that's why I love the super mammal community. It's just a bunch of people, mostly, some of them learn for school, but mostly it's people who want to maximize their learning so that they can, you know, improve their life and have the most creative thoughts and just learn for the enjoyment and that kind of thing. Whereas most people that don't have access to this kind of technology, they just view reading and learning as kind of a slog that you
Hmm.
have to go through to get a job or to make it through school or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, like the free learning, like the self-directed free learning, like part of the community is definitely my favorite part. I don't know. I'm really burnt out on like people studying for exams. I just really don't care at this point. So whenever people
Yeah.
want to do stuff for like cramming or whatever, oh, I find it so boring to like read about different strategies and stuff for that, just because I really see it as just a total waste of time and like it's the most cynical approach to learning and knowledge and stuff, especially since like you do all that work and then people like delete their decks after doing all that work. Oh, it's
Oh
just
man.
crazy to me. It's insane. So
Oh
I
man. Imagine that.
yeah.
Imagine that.
Oh, so painful. That I really um I think the biggest Anki community may be the medical school one, right? And that just seems to be
Yeah, it
the
has to be, I think.
dominant paradigm in that community. It just makes it so painful to read. Um,
And it's sad too because think of it, medicine, that's applied knowledge.
mm,
And so if you're deleting your decks, what what don't you want to be a good doctor? Like why not use it to be a good doctor and not just to become a doctor?
yeah. At the
And I
same,
hope I hope we're not getting that wrong. I don't want to mischaracterize anybody, but as
right,
far
yeah,
as I
yeah,
can tell, that's right. That's accurate.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's a really sad state of affairs. At the same time, though, there are medics um, who start off doing that and then they sort of branch out. Like two people immediately came to my mind. Like glutamate, he was
Oh yeah.
a medic or is still a medic, and he taught himself to code or something. I don't know if he did that through Anki or whatever, but it doesn't seem like all the cramming destroyed his enthusiasm for like learning new things, and he's obviously
Mm.
gone on to be really successful with that. And the second person, of course, is Fowl, who we could spend like another hour talking about Fowl's crazy like
Adventures.
adventures. Yeah, Fowl's adventures, like
Yeah,
just
he's crazy,
working
man.
on every project ever. You know, that is
Yeah,
a
and he
guy
literally said,
who's
"Oh, I'm lazy. I spend 4 hours a day just laying in bed reading
yeah, still
reading
manages
novels."
to get coding done. He's working on his startup and stuff and so on. So there are people who it doesn't crush and who sort of manage to make it through. I wonder if um, I wonder if that's what happens to most people, or if most people just get crushed by it and never want to go back to using SRS.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess another similar question would be, what portion of people are crushed by the schooling system, and by the end of it, they hate
Hmm.
learning altogether? Like to me, it seems like, you were in school and
Mm.
you still love learning. So what happened? Like how can you make that happen to more people?
Um, I really feel like with me, it was like, um, it wasn't that I wasn't crushed by it. It was that I was so crushed by it, and then saw an alternative that I was like, this is so much better. It was like,
I see.
yeah, it was the the swing between the extremes that was why it was so, I don't know, maybe impactful to go from learning being so soul crushing and boring and depressing to it being really enjoyable and focused on long term value and stuff like that. I think that was the thing that made it so uh, interesting to me. Yeah.
So did Anki revive that interest by itself, or did it only happen when you switched to Super Memo?
Um, I didn't really do any self study in Anki. I don't think. Maybe only for a couple of things. I think I self studied some finance stuff. Maybe I attempted to start learning programming in Anki, but that didn't work very well. Uh, and my consistency was way lower in Anki. I guess studying for school stuff maybe had a part to play in that. I think maybe I only studied on like 60% of days or something.
Mm.
Whereas in SM it's more like 99% plus. I don't know.
So that's weird because I wonder what portion of people would love learning who currently hate it if you just gave them incremental reading. Is there something about incremental reading that can not only help you if you already love learning, but it can make you love learning? Because I honestly think it can. I think it can
Mm,
change your life if you discover it and you like tune up your love of learning
mm.
by sort of gradually importing more and more stuff and going through more and more stuff and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how the people that Raj finds how they develop. How do they um, like I know that SuperMemo has a really high dropout rate. I think it's something like only 75% of people continue doing the repetitions after 1 month. I think that's was his statistic, and then it just
Oh,
declines from there. Uh, so maybe in a couple more months we can see who's still sticking around out of the people that Raj found. Uh, yeah.
yeah, and I don't know. I guess it's conflated by how difficult it is to really master incremental reading and the number of tools there are, and you have to adapt
Mm.
it to your own workflow and that kind of thing. But it seems like a significant portion of people who hated learning in school, and then they find super memo and incremental reading, and then they love it. Like I think Raj is that way. You were that way. I
Mm.
think Alexis was that way. He hated school, and once you find a way that matches your style and you can only import the stuff that you really love and it handles it all for you and it reduces the stress because you'll remember it and it's all adding up to something and it's meaningful. I don't know, man. I think that can change people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I, I just don't think there are a huge number of people who are interested in using it um, only for their own learning. Like, most people are going to be using it for school stuff or stuff that they are like coerced into doing, or not necessarily coerced, but they have to do in order to fulfill some goal or some requirement or whatever. So
Yeah,
I
and
feel like
even
that will interfere with it. The best people to I think it really works when you only focus on your own learning, but I just don't know that there are a huge number of people who will even begin to look for supermemo who aren't just looking to like pass exams and stuff.
yeah, there's probably some sort of lower than you'd wish ceiling on it
Mm.
of like total portion of the population that would love to enhance their own learning. I don't even know that most people think that way.
Mm. Yeah.
But even in the Super Memo Discord, there were some people, like there was this one guy who was explicitly using it to get better at his job. Like he just wanted to get more promotions. And
Mm.
he had items that he hated to remember algorithms and this kind of thing. And it took him ages to do all of his reviews, but it helped him get promoted, even though he hated the learning. And I don't know, I guess you can do that if you want, but it doesn't seem ideal. It seems like if you use it for the love of learning, you can really expand your mind and learn a ton of stuff. And another point is, we've talked about this. Incremental reading has existed for 2 decades. Where are the geniuses? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Where are they hiding?
Yeah. Do they even exist?
Yeah, exactly. You would think, and you would even think this about the internet. You would think that ubiquitous access to high quality information would fundamentally change the average level of education amongst individuals in the developed world. You would think that
Mm.
because everybody has a device all the time where they can access any information they want.
Mm.
But on the average, people don't seem that much more informed or any more informed than they were decades ago before the internet.
Mm.
And then add incremental reading on top of the internet, and you think, okay, now not only can you access all this information, but you can remember it as much as you want. You would think that would produce reliably extremely bright and well educated, creative people. And if so, is it just a matter of popularity, or does that not happen? Is something wrong about that?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I've done Google searches where I've searched for things like keywords, like I'll put researcher in brackets and then SRS or Supermemo or Anki, and like I've searched for people like I'll put like my thesis or something in
Right.
brackets and then Supermemo, Anki, and so on. But I didn't find anyone who was, and those, of course, those aren't the only indicators of like success or intelligence or genius or whatever. But I thought those were
Right.
good starting points, like to try and find people who were using it to achieve some sort of creative success, research success, if you know what I mean. But I just didn't
Yeah,
find
exactly.
anything there online. Maybe it's just that people don't talk about it. They keep it to themselves, this magical secret. But I feel like the truth was just that there aren't any people doing or using SM for those sort of things.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. One, I agree that that's a good portion of people. Like, if you're looking for a portion of people in the world that care about their learning a lot,
Mm.
researchers are probably a good start.
Yeah.
And two, I wonder if spaced repetition suffers from this problem of like productivity guru or note taking guru,
Mm.
where it's the people that talk about how to do it don't use it for anything serious themselves.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Is
Exactly.
it that kind of thing?
I think this is my favorite point from Andy Matushak, right? That
Oh yeah.
most most people using spaced repetition systems aren't using them in a serious context to do actually world changing or really creative work. So
Right.
as part of the reason I'm so burnt out on hearing people talk about their strategies for exams, people just talking about language learning, it's just totally uninteresting to me. It's just like the most boring part of SRS. The real frontier, the real interesting area to be explored is like how can this be used to generate world changing research or ideas? How can this be used to like create an amazing new business or an invention, stuff like that? But I just don't see it
Yeah,
anywhere.
I think what me and you want to see is a Nobel laureate get up there and say in his acceptance speech, "Thank you to Dr. Pyotr Wozniak, because without his work, I wouldn't have been able to, I wouldn't have been able to
Exactly.
come up with this idea." Just
Exactly.
see that.
Exactly.
That would be amazing.
Ah, goddamn.
But
Where is?
that has to happen, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
has
I
to
don't think
happen.
it's happened yet.
Oh man, and the point you talked about how people might keep it secret, I kind of feel like that a little bit,
Mm.
and I even notice a little bit of that intuition in myself. It's like if if you mention to people, "Oh yeah, I use this program to remember what I learned,"
Mm.
it kind of takes away a little bit of the magic of
Yeah.
having information. But you have to just get over that and just whatever. It's no big deal. Everybody forgets things. It's not a personal flaw. You can't remember everything unless you put it in some sort of system. So, but you know, so I do think that might be a component of it, but I also just think it might not be popular enough, or maybe, I don't know, maybe that doesn't happen. I don't know.
It could be that maybe the sort of like the current uh, researchers, the people who are doing world-changing research or whatever, all of them right now are are specialists, right? So they have to specialize in one domain. Maybe um, sort of spaced repetition, incremental reading, that sort of thing. It's not as useful in domains where specialization is king, because you
Mm.
can just, in order to win in a domain where specialization is really important, all you need to do is just focus on that one thing and do one thing every day for the rest of your life, right? But as soon as you need to be a generalist and you need to balance loads of different subjects and loads of different competing ideas and stuff like that, um, you need to have prioritization. You need to have spaced repetition, because otherwise you're just not going to be able to um, balance all of the different things you need to know in a really efficient way. So perhaps I don't know, perhaps the researchers doing really important work in the future, they'll be generalists, and they'll need to have some sort of, I don't know, they'll need to like balance specialist and generalist skills, and in order to do that, they'll need to use some sort of spaced repetition system, incremental reading, or something. I don't know. Maybe there'll be a huge
I
paradigm shift, but
I think it has to be that way, dude. It has to be that way.
yeah,
Even if you're a specialist, right? Creativity, at least as far as I can understand, is about associating things that seem disconnected. They seem disparate. They seem
mm,
remote. You have to randomly associate in a fruitful way. And what do you have? What do you have as the raw material for your association if you're such a specialist that you don't know anything outside of your own field? So in some way, I think if you're too much of a specialist, you might be accidentally limiting your creativity. And the other point is, surely the existence of such efficient space repetition systems and things like incremental reading and prioritization
yeah,
have raised the ceiling for
yes,
what's possible in terms of education and that kind of thing.
yeah, exactly. I feel like so many things in spaced repetition, and like what you just said, they sort of have mirrors in finance. So spaced repetition is sort of like this great new investment strategy that has amazing expected returns, and no one's looking at it right now. So the best thing you can do is like invest all your time in it, and so you can get the most return, right? But as soon
Right.
as it becomes like a really popular strategy, everyone realizes that it's so powerful. Everyone else will start doing it, and slowly there'll be less like benefit from using it, if you know what I mean, over time, as it becomes
Yeah.
like I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it makes perfect sense. You'll
yeah,
have to use incremental reading just to keep up. You won't
yeah,
even
yeah,
be
yeah,
ahead. You just have to use it to keep up.
yeah.
But I also wonder if it'll ever get that popular in the first place.
Yeah, and I wonder what the effect of that would be, like in schools, if suddenly everyone is using it. What effect would that have on like people taking exams? Although I hate talking about exams, but what if everyone was using it for exams? What would that do to the competition? How would that change like the meta of school? you know?
Yeah, and I guess little bit different than that is, what if there were no concept of like standardized education, and
Mm.
instead we just gave kids the tool set to learn on their own and retain their knowledge and that kind of thing? Like, what would happen to the world? How
Oh
much
yeah.
more creativity would there be? That kind of thing, it seems like it would have a huge effect, but
Well
I
yeah.
don't know.
That's like the Star Trek utopia, right? I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean, I, dude, it has to have some effect, right? It must have some effect.
Mm.
This tool is too powerful to not produce anything different about the world.
Mm.
It has to be.
I agree. I agree.
Like, I don't know. I don't even know what to say really because to me it seems obvious. Like, okay, you can get smarter if you just don't forget the things you learn, right? That seems obvious.
Uh-huh.
Is that not obvious? Is that not true?
I think it's true, but whether or not it's obvious, I don't know. I guess I guess it just isn't the way most people think.
Yeah, I guess not. But to me, it's like, okay, if problem solving is about thinking about the right things at the right time, and spaced repetition can help you do that by making sure that you remember things and
Hmm.
applying them in the right context and all that. To me, it seems obvious that massive learning that you don't forget increases your intelligence. And so, if everybody used this, we would elevate the intelligence and the average education level of the entire population.
I think one of the issues is that people don't want more knowledge or like more intelligence. What they want is, I don't know, like a lot of money basically. And
Uh,
it's
yeah,
not clear to
yeah,
me
that's
whether like knowledge or intelligence how much like if you only focus on knowledge and intelligence, will that result in you getting more money? And I wonder if most people think like I don't think I'm explaining this point very well, but I feel like most people have a really cynical view of knowledge. um, People only want to learn insofar as it will result in them earning more money basically. uh,
yeah. It's a really disappointing thing. Most people don't seem to care at all about learning new stuff.
uh-huh.
Like they only learn new stuff to pass some exam or to get a degree and then get a job, like you said, to get money. And I honestly think that's the limiting factor on the popularity of spaced repetition systems. It's the
Yeah.
question of like, do people actually want to learn things? Or would most people just like to have a job and then watch TV?
Yeah. Also, I wonder if, like, I'm not so against people wanting to make money either. It's just, I wonder if, people, I wonder if there is a link between, if more knowledge and intelligence, does that mean that you will have more opportunities to make creative things that result in you earning more money? And is that link obvious to people? Firstly, does that link exist? If you are more intelligent and more creative and more knowledgeable through SRS, does that give you more opportunities to make money? And
I mean, it must.
I feel like that maybe that link isn't obvious. Like,
I mean, I guess, but think about the stuff you've learned. The stuff you've learned with the help of SRS
mhm,
would directly help you get employed, literally directly.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
But I guess the benefits of it are nullified if everyone uses it.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the Flynn effect is great in the sense that each new generation is getting smarter than the last one,
Uh,
right? But it doesn't matter so much in terms of competition because everyone else is getting smarter. It's not like if you're born into that generation, you're
mm,
the only one getting smarter. Everyone else is. So that you don't get any extra benefit. Everyone else has that same benefit.
dude,
So
yeah.
in a way, there might be a Wozniak effect where every, everybody is smarter now.
Dude, it's just like there's this theory, the efficient market hypothesis in finance, and it sounds exactly like that. Like there's some strategy that I don't know, or maybe like the arbitrage effect. Like there's some strategy that creates really low risk returns, right? But then everyone realizes that strategy exists, so everyone starts doing it, and suddenly the return goes down. Yeah, the
Yeah,
efficient
and I
Wozniak
think that would
hypothesis.
probably happen.
Yeah, the Wozniak effect. I like that.
I mean, I don't know, but we're a long way from that. We're a long way from mass adoption of spaced repetition systems, and especially incremental reading.
Yeah, yeah.
Like people adopt Anki already in medical school, and then they don't use it for any other stuff, as far as I can tell.
Hmm.
And a lot of people who use Anki outside of the context of schooling just use it for trivia.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like the my favorite example is the Jeopardy guy.
Oh yeah, yeah, literally. Oh man, how many cards did he have? 100,000?
It must have been a ton. I don't think he went through all of those 100,000. I think some of them were generated. So he, like, I think we mentioned this on the call with George, maybe. Uh,
Yeah, maybe so.
his approach to creating those cards was really interesting. So he'd use like natural language processing and maybe some AI or something to generate those cards that were like high value or whatever. Uh,
Right. I vaguely recall seeing a talk he did at maybe it was Quantified Self.
oh
Did
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
happen?
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Um, so I think his process, his approach to the problem was really interesting. It's just the content of what he was learning was so boring. It's just boring. Like, what if he'd, instead of doing Jeopardy, what if he'd used that to further his research into like NLP, natural language processing? That would have been really
Yeah,
interesting. If he'd
yeah.
created 100,000 cards related to concepts in natural language processing, and he'd used this to like write a bunch of papers or whatever. That would have been so cool. Instead, it was like I crammed a bunch of trivia and then went on Jeopardy.
Yeah, and it's like, man, you've been given this amazing tool, and this is what you use it for?
Mm.
You're using it for this? And it's, whatever. People can do whatever they want. But just the other week, I saw someone said, I made this 20,000 card trivia deck. It's just general knowledge, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what is the point of this? It's not in context of anything. It's not about meaning. It's not about improving your specific knowledge of some area for some purpose of understanding things or anything like that. It's just, oh, I know a bunch of trivia facts now. Isn't that great? I mean, I guess it is, whatever, fine, but it seems like a waste of time and a waste of potential of like an amazing thing.
Yeah. Well, now you can show off at parties. You can win pub quizzes. It's brilliant.
Yeah, that's all I've ever wanted is for people at parties to go, "Oh my gosh, you know so many trivia facts." That's my life's dream. Oh man, dude, it's like to me, it's like this is a bad analogy, but it's like discovering anabolic steroids.
Yeah.
And so you inject yourself with anabolic steroids just to sit on your couch and not gain weight instead of like trying to maximize your performance. It's so stupid, dude. There's so much more you could do with this.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The potential is just totally being squandered on just nonsense.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's part of the reason why we're not seeing a huge portion of or a huge amount of people that have access to these tools becoming very prolific researchers or something like that because most of the people using it are just, oh, I can remember a bunch of trivia now.
Yeah. Dude, I'm actually really interested in somehow creating a community. And it could be joined with the Anki community as well, like or any space repetition system really. Just like a community of people who share that goal, that long-term high value, no trivia sort of that sort of goal. I don't know. I wonder
Yeah,
if
I would be interested in that as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I actually I think like Wozniak's philosophy has had a really good influence on like the Supermemo, SMA wiki community and stuff like that. The
Mm.
conversations that we have mostly are basically along the same lines as we sort of want them to be. Um, but I don't know, maybe it just doesn't seem widespread enough. There needs to be some sort of community push to get more people on board with this sort of view.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like I remember in the original Wired article, Gary Wolf, the writer, he said something about how, okay, well, you've discovered this tool to make yourself a genius.
Mm.
Like now you have to actually put it to use. Like you have to dedicate yourself to it, and it's not just like a short-term thing that you use for some random thing or whatever. Like, how many people who are in the Discord now who think SM is amazing will continue using it for a decade or 2 decades,
Mm.
or will they just drop out? Like that's what I want to know. Why is the dropout rate so high? Wouldn't you think that upon discovering such an amazing thing, like you can literally remember anything you learn,
Yeah.
wouldn't you think it would have a higher retention rate? No pun intended.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd love to see more statistics on the retention rate.
Yeah. I don't even know where Waz is getting that because it's not like it's connected to the internet. Like, I don't know if they know how do they know that?
I'm not sure actually. Um, that's a good point. Maybe it was from those surveys. He has those old surveys from like the 1990s or whatever, 90
Oh, yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are quite interesting. But yeah, I just want more data in general. More data. Uh, that's part of the
More
thing. Like,
golden nuggets.
I wonder if, like education research, it never focuses on anything outside of the classroom, really, or outside of schools. There's no interest in research into self-directed learning, as far as I know. I wonder if there was more data, more research, more like legit experiments into self-directed learning. I wonder if that would change things.
Yeah, I don't know. I also don't know how much people actually care about this.
Uh,
I think people pretend to care about all sorts of things. Like, oh, we want kids to do better or whatever. What they really want is for kids to do better on like exams. Like
yeah,
this is sort of loosely related. I was listening to a podcast with Andy Matushak, and forgive me for bringing him up so much, but uh,
that's okay.
he used to work at Khan Academy,
Yeah,
and Khan, they do all that math stuff and they have all those exercises for math problems.
hmm,
And he said they took a bunch of kids who had gotten every problem right on some exercise.
yeah,
So according to the system, they had mastered it. They were amazing at it.
yeah,
And it was like 14 kids, I think. And they asked them all, okay, so you got all these questions right. Can you tell us why this formula is whatever, giving you the area for that? And zero of them could give any answer. They all had no idea. They had just figured out how to answer these questions. They didn't really understand the deeper meaning.
yeah,
And the core of the problem there is like, okay, fine, these kids can pass these exams, but are you really helping them in life? Are you giving them new understanding that they can take with them and build onto other things and build new complex models and come up with creative ideas?
hmm,
Because if you don't understand why things work, how are you supposed to use that in your creative problem solving?
yeah, exactly. I'm kind of like disappointed with Khan Academy because I feel like it could be, like it could be like legit competition to the current paradigm of
Mm.
schooling and university, but instead it chooses to sort of ingratiate itself with the current paradigm rather than challenging it or trying to push it forward or anything like that. It seems to all be focused on exam stuff, school stuff, classroom stuff. The same thing with MOOCs, like massive. What's the acronym?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
massively open online
Massive
course.
online open something. I don't know.
Yeah, it just seems like everyone's obsessed with the idea of a classroom. Like even those MOOCs, you have to, unless you just find the videos on YouTube, you have to enroll yourself, and you have this
Yeah.
you have this thing called the internet where you can distribute anything without arbitrary constraints and just bullshit. But instead, you just, for no reason apparently, you just create this artificial constraint of enrolling. It's just insane. I just don't understand the obsession with the classroom. It just seems to hold
Yeah.
everything back. There's no interest from anyone in anything but the classroom.
Yeah, everybody's so locked into this stupid model
Yeah.
where it's like maybe just let it go.
Yeah,
Maybe just
exactly.
try something else.
just forget it exists entirely and just do something else, please.
Oh man,
But
and it makes me hopeless. What were we gonna say?
no, I was just gonna say I have no expectation that it will ever change, or well, I have no expectation that the change will come from the establishment or the. I liked what someone said the other day. It was on George Hodge's stream. He referred to like academic institutions as like the state church. So
Mm,
I don't know. I see no impetus from the government. I see no impetus from the institutions to change anything or to think outside of the box or anything like that. I really think it's going to come from students themselves in like a decentralized way. Uh, if there is change to be had, I think it will be outside of the main system. You know?
yeah, I think there would be too much required to uproot it. Like
Mm.
right now, if you said to the officials in charge of the education system in the U.S. or wherever, okay, would you be happy if we could increase the number of kids who get 90% plus on this portion of exams by some significant margin? They
Mm.
would say, yeah, that would be amazing, right? Because what they care about is performance on the test. But
Mm.
Andy Matuszak's anecdote from Khan Academy sort of conveys that performance on the test doesn't mean that you have true mastery of the material that would translate into enhanced capability in the rest of life.
Yeah.
And if what you actually cared about was making kids well educated and intelligent and capable and creative and maybe even happy, maybe if you care about how happy people are, then you'd have to think about different metrics for like,
Yeah.
okay, that makes someone, this way of teaching makes someone more likely to actually understand and not just get the questions right on the test. But the metrics are totally wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do about that even.
I'd be so interested in talking to Andy Matuszak about his experience at Khan Academy. Uh, does he have a podcast on it?
Uh, there was not a podcast that I found that was explicitly on it,
Uh-huh.
but I would love to chat with him also. Maybe we could have a chat with him
Let's get him on
just
here.
like for an hour or
Call
something.
him up.
Let's do it, man.
No,
I
I'd
don't
be
have his
so.
number, but we could email him and see what happens.
Yeah. No, I mean, I wonder how much he'd be willing to share. But I'd really like to do like a deep dive on what his experiences were. Did he feel like he was able to make the changes he wanted to make? Okay, I didn't think he stayed there all that long, maybe? Is that true?
I don't know exactly.
Okay. Well, we can ask him when he comes on.
Yeah, we'll ask him. But I don't want to be disparaging to Khan Academy. I'm
Uh,
sure they've had a great effect on a lot of people's lives.
that's true.
Like
That's
I know
absolutely
that some people have used them for self-learning, and they're a great resource for that.
true.
I guess the core of the point I'm making, I think we're both making, is like passing these tests and doing this kind of learning is not really making people more likely to come up with creative ideas or lead a happy and fulfilled life or
Mm.
increase their understanding of the world. And if those things don't matter, what does? Like, oh, I can answer this question even though I don't know why it's that answer. I'm not interested in that kind of learning at all because it's
Yeah,
not learning.
exactly. Yeah, and I'll say as well, um, Khan was a pioneer. Like, what he created was really incredible, and loads of people do benefit from it. I just feel that it hasn't gone far enough. Like, he has like the clout, if you know what I mean, to make
Yeah,
real serious changes. He could be a real force for change, but I just don't see any indication that that's what he wants. You know what I mean? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's and I honestly don't think it'll change.
Yeah.
And I think the way that even higher level education like universities, the way it's set up, it's like a scam now. You just pay
Uh-huh.
all this money for this garbage that you can learn on the internet anyway. And
Yeah.
people go, oh, well, what about the networking and what about that and whatever? That's fine. I agree. Sure. If you go to a great university, there's probably a bunch of other cool people there that you can create a friendship with and maybe do cool stuff together.
Mm.
Whatever. That's fine. But if you're talking about pure learning, you can go right now and find classes from Harvard and Stanford and
Mm.
MIT and Yale on the internet for free. It's literally no money. You could do it yourself. And look, is that a complete replication of the curriculum you'd have? No. But it's like to charge people hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like Harvard is turning off their campus to 60% of their student body because of this coronavirus. But they're not decreasing tuition. What kind of a scam is that? Are you trying to charge people, what is it, $50,000 for an online school?
Yeah.
Are you ridiculous? That's insane.
Yeah.
That's a scam.
The move from the universities to start putting more of their lectures and stuff online was so interesting to me. Like, if you put all of your lectures online, where is the rest of the value coming from? Is it just the certification and like the networking or whatever? Like, where is all this value, supposed value, coming from? It all just seems to be wrapped up in like intangibles and stuff you can't really measure. It's just a feeling or whatever. It's just...
Yeah, and fine, if that's what you care about, then I guess that's it. But don't pretend that like, oh, if you go to such and such school, you'll have access to such a great education that you couldn't get anywhere else, except for the internet for no money.
Yeah. This wonderful thing called the internet.
It's ridiculous, dude.
I'm kind of wishing we ended this like 20 minutes earlier when we were talking about the Star Trek Utopia. But anyway, I guess...
Wozniak effect.
Yeah, the Wozniak effect. But yeah, I guess I'm gonna go get some coffee now.
All right, we can end it here if you want.
Yeah. This was a really interesting conversation. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, I enjoyed this a lot.
Yeah. See you next time.
All right.